Hey guys, today I'm going to give you an update on the BendyPOD. Alright, so what's been happening with the BendyPOD? Officially, 300 orders had to come in order for me to be able to go into production. There was small updates here where I mentioned that only about 100 orders came in, and then, like with 20 orders would come in, but about 20 orders would actually get canceled because for various reasons people they didn't want to wait any longer. And so we've been stuck there. We're around 120, something like that. But finally last week I received the sample orders. These are parts that are actually made for the BendyPOD. Everything else before this point were parts that were taken out of my bins that were made and designed for something entirely different. And so there's slight changes here and there. Mostly the design was down, and these pretty much look almost identical to the other ones, right? To the one that is underneath the camera here. But there's slight changes. And I have good news and I have bad news for you guys. First, let's look at the good news. What is good? Part of the reason why I wanted to change the design of these parts was to actually help me make these tripods faster. The way they were required a bunch of screws. Each one of these things would take a screw, incredible amount of screws, and it'd take a long time for me to put them on. And so it was really labor intensive. And by changing the design, then I was able to eliminate most of those screws. In fact, now it only takes 1, 2, 3, 4 screws on this ones. On the 10-inch, only 12 screws. And on the little ones, only 9 screws to hold the legs. And so I was able to do that by designing the parts different. By putting, instead of just having a hold and using a screw head to be able to use as the axle, now I made a hold here. I kind of reversed the thing. I put a hole in here and then a nub right here. And so then that goes into that little hole, and that serves as the axle there. And then the other one on the other side. And so without the need of any screws that take time to install and they're costly, I was able to do the whole thing. So that is good. The other good news is that even though my thing is to brand my products by using the color orange, that's how I identified my whole line up to this point, right? And people would fight with me all the time. They didn't understand the whole thing about branding. And even though in the past I never gave in making a all black line of products, this time around, I said, hey, why not? If you guys want an all-black, stealthier looking tripod, I'll give that to you. And so here they are, This is the 7-inch, and to my surprise, it looks pretty cool. I don't know if I like it better than the orange, but definitely it makes for a very, very elegant looking product. I like it. I mean, I might even like it better than the orange one. I might be willing to give away the orange thing for the first time in many, many years, because the orange has been part of all my product line since I started. Don't be surprised if you guys see me with my very own personal BendyPOD, and it's the all black instead of the orange. So very, very good. All of you guys that suggested an all black and wanted all black and ordered an all black, yeah, it's here and it's pretty good. So those are the good news. Okay, now let's look at the bad news. The bad news are not horrible news, but they're not good news, right? So a bit of bad news is that even though we got these parts, the sample parts, and they worked aesthetically, I like what they look like, I'm afraid that they're just not good enough. They're just not good enough for a production product. What am I talking about? Look, here's a 7-inch tripod, right? You see that, how it bends like that? Okay, that is play. And I don't want to ship product that has any play, right? And the reason why there is play, here's the thing. The original design had screws with little heads sticking off of this piece here. and then these guys would have holes, and it would use the head only as an axle. The problem with that design, of course, is not only that it was time-consuming but expensive, it's also that I couldn't really control the size of the head of the screw. And so, screw manufacturers, they vary, like from batch to batch. Sometimes the machine, the way they calibrate or whatever, they'll stamp that metal and make the head a little bit, bigger, and sometimes a little bit smaller. And so sometimes it would make for a tripod, depending on whatever batch of screws, it would have like 0 play. But then a lot of the times it would have a lot of play. And so it was really hard for me to control that. That's why this design change was gonna be good overall, because I can really control the size of this nub. I could also control the size of this hole. And so I wanted it to fit perfectly in here without play, with 0 lash. But that is not what we got here. That hole is just slightly bigger than this little nub right here, than this protrusion right here. And here's the thing, when I drew these pieces, the size of this hole and the size of this little protrusion here is exactly the same size. So in theory, these two here shouldn't be able to go together. They would, in theory, they should like be super tight. And that was okay, because I was gonna try that, and if it was too tight, then I was gonna just get a drill bit and then drill this slightly bigger so that we would have a tight fit. But I noticed that from day one when I received this part, when you anodize these parts, they add a few microns to the surface. And so if you add a few microns to this, that means this gets a little bit bigger. If you add a few microns to the inside of this hole here, then it also gets a little bit bigger. And so my hope was that once I anodize the parts, then I was able to put them in here and they would have a tighter fit. But it's still not tight enough. And so I am going to have to talk to the machine shops to make sure that the guy running the machine makes sure that these two parts go together without lash, with 0 lash. Only then will I have parts good enough to be able to ship to you guys. So the bad news is that I'm not gonna be able to just order like the full run of parts just yet, because I have to get a sample that works. And so those are just the intricacies that are like go in designing a part that has very tight tolerances. Believe it or not, this thing, even though it's just a little tripod that's supposed to bend like that minuscule size difference between the hole and the little nub here makes a huge difference in the way this works. It's not such a big deal on this 7-inch, but on this 10 inches, it really becomes noticeable that they have play. You see that? You see how that moves there? I want none of that. I want this to be like 0 lash, 0 play. When you guys get this thing, it's gonna feel very solid, but very smooth. And so the problem is, of course, that that we still have to wait, because I have to get samples that work. And once we figure that critical dimension in these parts, then I'll be able to say, here we go, let's cut all the parts. And so here's what's gonna happen in this next week. I'm gonna be in contact with my machine shop, and I also am going to get a quote from a different machine shop, because I want to have 2 sources, because these guys kind of not been the greatest to me. You know, they even though I've done millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars worth of business with them, they kind of give me the runaround. You know, like they won't actually start a job until I pay them, basically. You know, I have to pay for the stuff all up front, and that's actually gotten me in trouble before, because sometimes you know, like if the credit card didn't go through, they never told me, or I wasn't, you know, aware of the problem until weeks and weeks later, once I was expecting the part. And once I went and talked to them, they go like, well, the card did not process, you know, you maxed out that card that day, or whatever, for whatever reason. And they, you know, you would think that someone would have a super long relationship with me, would, you you know, they would kind of foresee that. It was like $100 order of parts. And for them to like say, no, we're not going to process this part because we don't trust you that you're going to pay us, you know, to someone like me that literally has done millions of dollars of business with them, then, you know, it just doesn't feel right, right? And so that's why I'm also going to get a second quote from another shop that also has given me better prices in the past. Not particularly better quality parts, right? But, you know, it's like a thing there. Maybe I can get them to give me equal quality parts for just slightly, you know, less, you know, cost to me. And so that's what's going to happen this week. I'm going to try to get this thing nailed down where I can get some sample parts that actually have the right tolerances and then the right price to be able to get this thing and then get this into production. I really want you guys to get your tripods already. I am not comfortable with you guys waiting so much. You guys have been super patient, but I do know that patience runs out, and I am very aware of that, and I'm really trying to get this thing going. But I want to ship you, above all, a product that you're going to be happy with, and that I'm going to be happy with sending you, and you guys are going to like not have any hesitation to recommend it to your friends and to whoever asked you for it. So that's the plan here. Thank you to every single person that's pre-ordered the BendyPOD, and this is where we're at right now. I'm gonna do my best to try to get this thing into production, to my hands, till I can assemble these guys and send them out to you guys, so you guys can start using them. All right, thank you. See you on the next video.
Look around until I found
It's raining.
someone who laughs like you.
All right, today is raining in California, so you guys know what that means. Remember a couple of months ago I said I was gonna give away my drone? Well, I think I should try to do another giveaway. What do you guys say?